public goods is a very specific case. Public goods is the case where it's, just has to be available to everyone with no barriers or whatever. Supermodularity is a much more general notion that by combining things together, we can achieve more than by leaving them separately. And so plurality, which is not based on sort of universal or there's one input or whatever, but based on the notion that in localized ways, in particular places, we can combine things together and get more by working together in some way. That's really where the idea of supermodularity shines.
Yeah, and
Glen has a paper on that at cip.org/supermodular. So if you're an economist or a sociologist, you can easily follow the link and see the analysis. But the main idea is that without participation infrastructure, without collective intelligence, there is simply no enough signal to govern something that is supermodular if you rely on price alone in the market. This is the core insight. Everything else is written up on that paper.
yeah.
Thank you very much for asking. Anyway, so if you want to ask a question in Japanese, it's okay. So I can translate. And next, about Taiwan's approach, how we can apply to Japan. Okay, recommendation.
Japan has more people, so you use the same tools to reach more people. And I see you're already doing this with Talk to the City and with the new Quadratic funding experiment and so on. Because in Taiwan, we mainly get our recognition internationally because we take the tools that worked for a small city like Barcelona or Madrid. Or in Iceland, in Reykjavik, or in Seattle. Seattle is a little bit larger, or in Wellington, or in some these kind of cities. And then we were able to lift those municipal level tools to work on a national scale with 23 million people. And whereas like 10 years ago, people thought these tools are limited to like 1 million people or tens of thousands of people. And we showed that with careful design, actually the more people you reach, you actually get better signal. And this is very counterintuitive. 10 years ago, people thought there is an upper limit, there is a ceiling to which after this, the tool doesn't work, it breaks down. But now we have shown with language models and so on, actually the more data, the better. It's completely different now. And so it used to be, for example, if you want to hold deliberations, like 100 simultaneous citizen assembly, you need 100 facilitators. But now you can use robot as facilitator now. So nowadays, with this supermodular goods that we now have to share, I think a larger jurisdiction can be more ambitious. You can start prototype these tools on your small network, but also feel brave in scaling it deeply and then outward to reach a lot more people. And then you will be even more prominent because you have more than 23 million people.
One thing I would just add to that is to say, Taiwan is kind of a bridge between the city scale and the national scale, because it's sort of nation, not nation. You know what I mean? It's a province, it's a nation, it's a city, so it sort of is all of them at the same time. You know what I mean?
Used to be a province.
Yeah. I don't know. Whatever people think. Whatever people think. You know what I mean? The point is, it's different people have different interpretations of what it is. So.
But thank you. But how much do we need kind of the political, approach to executing this one? Because I know how to do it, but I think some political approach or political negotiation should be we need it. But how do you think about the political?
The airbox example or the example of occupying the parliament, they are political, but they started with a strong demonstration, right? So they did not start from the government; they started from the demonstrators. But it's important to have the mentality of demonstrating, not just protesting. Protesting is when you're against something. We're against air pollution. Demonstrating is to show, this is how you measure air pollution, right? So have the mentality of a demonstrator, means that people in the government or people who are bridges between the civil society and the government have something to bridge into. But if you only protest and not demo, then there's nothing to bridge into.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, okay. Great.
Yeah, let me add something from Code for Japan point of view. So Code for Japan has been providing the opportunity to build something as a monthly hackathon. Please come to our hackathon, so you can build something or help people who want to build something. So it is important to make our hand dirty, I think, so to show something is useful. For example, Code for Japan translated localized Dissident. It is open source software born in Barcelona and providing to that tools for some local government. So such kind of tool utilizing existing tools is very great way to start something. And I think here we have Anno-san, and he also used the broad reasoning approach, and Nishio-san is here, and it is great example, I think. And next would be so anyway, you guys also can vote to the existing questions. So if you have an interesting question, please vote upvote the existing questions. Okay, and about the idea quadratic voting.
Okay. So in Taiwan, since 2018, the presidential hackathon, every year we have like 200 teams, many teams. A classic question is how to make sure that we discover which teams have synergy, which teams they work together. And this is not very easy to do in a way that is like amenable to the traditional voting. Like if you have voting, like approval voting, which is like Slido, like everybody can vote many questions. But which two questions have the most synergy? This is a very difficult to answer question. But in Taiwan, we use quadratic voting for this. So once you get to the presidential hackathon website, you're asked to log in with your SMS or something. And once you log in, you have 99 points, 99 credits. And then using those 99 points, you can vote for the 200 projects. Nobody spent 99 points on 99 projects so far. I've not seen anyone do this. They prefer to go to their favorite project and start voting on it. But they very quickly find they cannot vote 99 votes because 1 point gets you 1 vote. But to get 2 votes, you need 4 points. 9 points gives you 3 votes. 16 points give you 4 votes. It's quadratic. So it means with 99 points, you can do the math. You don't have 10 votes because that will require 100. You only have 9 votes, which is 81 points. So once you vote the 9th vote, you still have 18 points left. Nobody wants to waste those 18 points. So you are going to look at other projects to find which one have synergy. So it's in a sense an incentive design to incentivize the people's extra cognitive power to look for those synergies for you, for the idea that they also want to increase the chance of project B. If project A that got 9 votes did not make it to the top 20, at least project B, which is similar to project A, can get it. But when they try to vote for project B, they will find with 18 points, you can only vote 4, which costs 16. So you still have 2 points left. So you're motivated to look at project C and project D and to find the synergy. And once you look at project C and D, many people discover maybe project A wasn't the best project after all. Maybe project A is just their friend's project. And so they know it first, but they actually like project C more. So they would take some points back from project A. Maybe they do a 7 and 7 and 1 or something like that. So people start thinking very strategically. And mathematically, actually each votes that costs the points very much proportional to the chance that it increases to be selected to the top 20. It is optimal in some sense of that word. So when people started using quadratic voting, we have much, much better synergy information just based on who voted for which combination of projects, of how these would work together. And when we select the top 20, we now have top 20 and the other 200. But then we know how to shuffle the people from those 200 into the top 20 so that the top 20 can get the support. And the top 20 tends to be the one that work best with many projects, which means they're more supermodular. So this is how we concretely use quadratic voting to discover that something is more supermodular than the other. I don't know, Glen, have theoretical?
Well, I just say, I mean, in terms of how you implement this for budgeting as opposed to, as Audrey was doing, for giving out a prize to the projects, there are kind of ways you could do knapsack approaches where, you know, each project needs a certain amount of money, and then it's like sort of the ratio of the support that it gets to the money that it needs that determines whether it makes it in, or you can do even more complicated knapsack versions than that. Those are things that have been explored somewhat in the computational social choice literature, and yeah.
Okay, thank you. If you have some, if you want to add something, please raise your hand. I will give you mic. And in order to have a digital democracy, people need to be more engaged. Wow, this question often comes to me as well.
I think that's a Seki-san question.
Yeah, so people are quiet and just wait for government action in Japan. Yeah, often I got this kind of criticism, and I think half. I think it is, yeah, right. But I think Japanese people can have a different approach, so people can enjoy the democracy as joining some kind of matsuri and festival like that. So I realized in this in the last election, it was fun for me because I saw Anno-san's approach, and I could contribute a very small contribution, but I saw that many people wanted to join the election different way. So I think that good point for us is creating some kind of innovative or creative projects with between the friends or some other people who want to change something. So we don't need to have a demonstration in front of the office, the government office building. We just show something, like Audrey said, we can demonstrate something useful digital tools, or we can show some potential of open source software. So we want just we keep creating something good for the society and show and go to the government office and tell them how they can utilize our technologies to make more better society. Yeah, that's my way to work with the government. Yeah, so don't hesitate to go to the government officials and talk to the people. So they are also trying to build something good. So yeah.
They're also waiting for you.
So here is some people from the digital agency, so you can talk to them later. Any additional comments from
Yeah,
side?
I think this is both sides, right? The government need to trust the people first. To give no trust is to get no trust. But I think, especially for digital agency, I think many people want to trust the citizens. And so small-scale demonstrations and more like events like this that let the two sides discover each other, I think that is what's needed. And once people discover that it's actually fun and easy and not at all risky, and then you can very easily scale out. But you need to build this scale deeply, this personal trust first before you scale out anything.
Thank you. Next question. What kind of incentive do you think are best to design when building software infrastructure like a DID VCs, which users can't imagine their benefits easily?
Yes. Microphone?
In Japan.
According to this question, in Japan, from my point of view, most Japanese government officials are very quiet and do not open their door to the people because they are very fearful of the people. People's, how to say, not claimer とかね。What? How to say? Complaining people. They always the government officials only meet the people who are just complaining. And they don't have a good productive discussions. That is a problem in Japanese government. How about in Taiwan? I want to know the situation between the government people, government, and the average people. They all always trusted with each other.
In Taiwan, we also had that problem 10 years ago. 10 years ago, the trust level from the people to the government was at 9%. 9%, very, very low. 9%. Yeah, anything the administration says, everybody automatically distrust. Right? And so people will just complain, right? But I think something really happened between 2014 and 2018 when we invested in the participation infrastructure. People, instead of just complaining, they built places where other people can go there, and instead of just complaining, they figure out a better way to do things. We talk about vTaiwan, but in the same year, in addition to vTaiwan, we also introduced the petition platform, join.gov.tw. It's been running for a decade now. Anyone with 5,000 signature online can propose something for a minister to consider, to respond, or even to meet people. Now, we use the design from Iceland, from Better Reykjavik. So those 5,000 opinions, they have two columns. One is supporting, like maybe there is a petition, there's really a petition that says we should change the time zone of Taiwan to be the same as Japan. There was really 8,000 people sign on that petition that we should be GMT plus 9. And there's also 8,000 people that said we should remain in GMT plus 8. We should not move to GMT plus 9. But with 16,000 people, if they individually complain, that's too much noise. But because we use the design of from Iceland, so you have one column of the supporting argument. You have another column of the against argument. They can upvote, they can downvote, but there is no reply. You cannot fight between the two columns. So if you don't like this argument, the only thing you can do is to demonstrate a better argument in the other column and get people to upvote it. And so at the end of the day, you just look at the top arguments from both sides, and then you have a very good idea of what people are actually trying to do. And then we invite both sides of people to the same room, like this room. And we hear from the people who want to change the time zone. And they only want to make Taiwan more unique. They want to force people who travel from Beijing, who travel from Hong Kong, to Taiwan, to force them to change the clock. So that's their main motivation. And the main counter-argument was that it would cost a lot of money. And we actually worked with the Ministry of Economy, with Finance, with Tourism, to calculate exactly how many dollars it will cost Taiwan, both one-time and recurring, if we really want to change the time zone. It's a lot of money. And then we brainstormed, if we want to spend this much money, how can we make Taiwan more unique, but more efficiently, if we are about to spend this money? And so both sides think of very good idea, like we should let people know bubble tea come from Taiwan. It's not some other place, it's from Taiwan. Or we should let people know we have marriage equality, the first in Asia. Or we should invite more human rights conferences, like RightsCon, to Taiwan. We should invite more international NGO or international media to Taiwan. And all this are not as costly as changing our time zone. So at the end of the meeting, both sides, they can live with it because they have the same goals, the same value, making Taiwan more unique. It's just that their roots, their way is different. But because both agree there are better ways, so we found better ways. So again, you need the conflict first, but then you need the participation infrastructure to discover the supermodular solutions, things that are good only when everybody participates. And then you need to make it infrastructure. So that three-step also works in this case. So in 2018, when we started institutionalizing it, the trust level become more than 20%. And then 2 years after that, from 20 to 40 to 60 and so on. So when I graduated in May, the trust level to the Tsai Ing-wen administration was more than 60%, which is very, very high.
Wow. Wow. So for having such kind of constructive conversation, it is important to invite both sides, right? So, but it's difficult to reach out the people. How do or they do?
Yeah. But they already signed the petition. Right?
Okay.
They already signed the petition online. So if you send an email to 18 or 16,000 people, you will get like people who say, I can show up. Or if you do it online, then even more people will say they show up. And also because in the platform, we do not restrict the age. You only need the SMS number. So some of the most powerful petitions are from very young people, like banning plastic straw from bubble tea takeout, that from a 16-year-old. And they also petition for things that affect their life. Because in Taiwan, the 15-year-olds, they go to school on 7:30 a.m. But the class doesn't actually start until almost 9 p.m. And so they started a petition that says, we want to sleep 2 more hours. We want to go to school at 9, not 7:30. And so because research show if you sleep 1 hour more, you actually get better score than if you study 1 hour more. I think Japan also has this problem. Right, and so, and it was successful. They get 5,000 people, many of them teenagers, sign on the petition. They did not get 2 hours more sleep, but they get 1 more hour sleep. We really changed the regulation. We have a parent of a high school student here, so the petition was successful. And so they will find themselves a very strong citizen, even before they turn 18. So not waiting for their 18 to cast the first vote, but they can set the conversation in the society even when they're 14 or 15.
Okay, thank you. And the point of this question is a bit different from that we are talking. So the incentive about the best design to the difficult technology that understandable to the people, normal people maybe. So yeah, how we.
Yeah. Well, I think it is not about incentivizing the individual citizens. It is about incentivizing the people who consume those DIDs or verifiable credentials, you need to create a strong incentive for them to verify the digital signature. If they don't verify or they verify in a bad way, there need to be very strong liability if you don't verify. For example, a couple of weeks ago, the Taiwan Parliament passed a law called the Anti-Fraud Act. And in the act, it says, because there is too many deepfake on Facebook, many places. And so the celebrities, many of them photos are used in those advertisements to sell cryptocurrency or something like that. And they don't like it, right? So we now say to post any advertisement on social media that has the potential to reach 10% of our people, so on Facebook and so on. First, like TikTok, they have to register in Taiwan, a local presence. Otherwise, we will block them. And now, when they registered, when they post such advertisement with people's face on it, they need to get a digital signature from that person. So if you see Audrey Tang selling you cryptocurrency, Audrey Tang need to sign that advertisement. If Audrey Tang doesn't sign and somebody gets scammed for 1 million, then Facebook will be liable to pay that 1 million.
Wow.
So Facebook recently, Meta and Google and many people, they visited the Ministry of Digital Affairs. They say publicly, anti-fraud is very important. Even though it will cost us a lot of money, we will invest in this kind of digital signature verification infrastructure. And so you need this kind of law. If you don't have a law that assigns liability, and you only have regulation, if you only have incentive, if you say, Facebook, if you want to implement this system, the state will give you 80% of the cost. They will still not do it because there's nothing in it for them. They will lose advertisement business, right? Because for them, the best scenario is for those advertisements to be still there and they can keep earning, right, from it. So they don't want to implement this. But we say to them, if you don't, that's fine, and we're not fining you, but if somebody get conned for 1 million, you have to pay that 1 million. And then now they listen, right? So, and that's probably going to be the strongest implementation incentive for DID, for VC, because there are advertisements from the US, from Japan, to the Taiwanese audience as well. And they don't have the Taiwan FIDO. They don't have the Taiwanese PKI system. So they have to use their own PKI system. And to interoperate different PKI systems, the easiest way is selective disclosure, is decentralized identifier. And so that is why we have the Digital Signature Act, also recognizing the shared trust systems. And so then they can post advertisement. So Google, for example, say they are also a certificate authority. They can also use the IDVC, right, to sign those advertisements. And we're like, of course, it's fine, right? So it needs a strong liability, not just incentive for this kind of thing. And supermodular goods means everybody participates. And the flip side of it is the externality, the harm, right? So if everybody do it without digital signature, it harms the trust of everybody. So in a sense, anything that cure this negative, this harm to society is by itself a supermodular good. So you can also start with something that the society really hates, like fraud, and then turn it into an incentive to design the DPI.
Thank you very much. So many questions. I would like to know how the DPI can be used to capture the views of
I can speak to that. These groups are ones that are often called marginalized communities in the U.S. And I think the key to this really is, again, some kind of notion of incentive. So in the polis system, if you say the same thing again and again, you all end up in one point because it clusters the perspectives. No matter how many people say it again and again, it ends up in that one point. But if you say something very different, your voice is heard, your voice is surfaced. And so if you have systems that try to highlight the distinctiveness, then that gives a very strong incentive for those communities that aren't heard to speak, because they know that if they're bringing a new perspective to the table, that they get surfaced much more.
Yes.
And yeah.
Yeah, this is related to the idea called the bridging bonus. In Polis and also Talk to the City and Community Notes, many ideas. You can literally see like 4 clusters. And maybe this cluster is a lot of people. Maybe this cluster is just 10 people. But it doesn't matter because it measures the uniqueness of their viewpoints. And then we give the budget, we give the agenda setting, we give the reward to anyone who can propose statements that bridge those 2 clusters together to bring them closer. And the same goes for community notes as well. And so using this algorithm, the larger cluster has the incentive to bridge to the smaller, to the more marginalized group. But if you count only by majority voting, then they already have the majority. There is no incentive for them to think about the marginalized group. So it all depends on what you sort for. If you sort for only the people's head count, then it's flow to the top. But if you sort by bridge making and give longer bridges more bonus, then everybody gets into the mood, or at least some people get into the mood of truly thinking about new idea that bridge across very long distances. Of course, most people think about bridging internally, but that's fine. There's bound to be some that can bridge longer distances.
So in its kind of ideal form, I can see how this kind of system can kind of highlight real diversity in perspectives and opinions. And what I just wonder is how do you deal with the limitations of the actual kind of algorithm or neural net or whatever you're using to cluster those opinions, in sense of, do they sometimes end up just reinforcing existing kind of group identities because of the bias ingrained in the large language model, for example?
Yeah, well, Polis doesn't use large language model. They use only dimensional reduction for visualization and k-means clustering when it comes to clusters. So it is actually very difficult to game that system because you really need people who are otherwise different to agree with you, your statement. I don't think community nodes use language model yet. So if you look at x.com,
No.
the community nodes people don't, right? So
Yeah,
neither
if
does
anything, it's a
YouTube.
very simplistic thing there. I mean, I actually think Community Notes does run the risk that you're describing, which is that because they reduce everything to one dimension rather than doing multi-dimensions, so it's actually less sophisticated than Polis in that way.
Yeah.
It does tend to impose the American left-right political spectrum on everyone around the world, which I think is a problem, and I think it needs to be improved on, and we've been talking to them about that. So that is definitely something you can run into, but that's a reason to then improve on the algorithms.
Yeah, Polis at least use 2 dimensions when it comes to visualization. So at any point you can have 2 different orthogonal divides going on. But like in Jigsaw, they are having even more dimensions. I think they have 7 dimensions now. Affinity, compassion, curiosity, nuance, personal story, reasoning, and respect. So they use 7 different dimensions, whereas Polis usually only visualize 2. Now, of course, with 7 dimensions, the problem is you cannot easily visualize 7 dimensions. So they tried many different interfaces. Sometimes they combine curiosity with nuance, and then they use that as a main sorting algorithm. And then after that, they allow you to kind of bring your own sorting mechanism. Because many people approach social media in different ways. Some people are there because they're curious, they want to learn something. But some people are there because they want to connect with their friends. But any of the 7 is better than just shouting at each other, right? So I think any time we increase the dimension, there is something more nuanced that is captured, but there is more interface design that needs to be done in order to make sense for many people.
Thank you. So I think this is the last question before the lunch. So this is, oh, sorry, I didn't see.
ちょっと 私が日本語しか喋れなくて翻訳していただくことって可能ですか？まず、
First,
ポリスだったりとか、そのデジタルインフラに参加するための、参加できない人たち。
So she wants to know how include people who cannot attend to the police or some other digital tools. So,
Like they don't have broadband access.
yeah, maybe
then that's,
broadband access or not ability to write.
If they don't have broadband access, that's his fault, right? Well, we have the idea that broadband is a human right. So no matter how remote you are, using satellite connectivity, using microwave, using things like that, the Ministry of Digital Affairs is committed to bring broadband to everywhere. And it is not just broadcasting, not just one way. It needs to be two-way. So the uplink is equally important. If you have good uplink, then you can participate in video conference. You can make your voice fully heard. But if only because you're too remote or if you are too high in the mountain or something, nowadays there are ways in Taiwan using universal service to make sure that whoever invests in the place there for connectivity, they get reimbursement from the other telecom that didn't make such investments themselves. And so there is now a very healthy ecosystem, and recently also included low Earth orbit satellites into the mix. Of course, that's still testing, but pretty soon I think we will be able to cover everyone. And so in addition to broadband as a human right, we also have the idea of helping the helper. So like in schools, that is the teachers helping the students. But maybe in like my grandparents, they are 90 years old now. Then their offsprings, like my parents, who are 70 years old, the 70-year-old can help the 90-year-old to bring them into this conversation. But it is not about asking people to go to a digital system. We sometimes, when it comes to petition, also bring the digital technology, like the camera and so on, to the place where people meet already. And so you can have a hybrid meeting like this. But I think as language model become cheaper and cheaper, you can now just offer a telephone number. So the elderly people can just call that number. Maybe that is also very possible now. So I think with time, the cost is going to be less and less. But still, providing broadband as a human right, that is the fundamental thing. And it is the government's duty because that is the most supermodular of all the supermodular digital goods.
And our hope is that broadband as a human right is not just the government of one jurisdictions. We're working on this idea of an internet-free world, which is we bring this to authoritarian contexts. We use the satellites. We distribute receivers through religious groups, through dissident groups. And broadband should be a universal human right, regardless of whether the jurisdiction involved supports that right or not.
Oh, okay.
合わせて例えばトラウマだったりとか、あとはそうですね、意見を表明しづらい、言葉にしづらい。
So not only the digital technology or broadband systems, but also people who can't express their opinions, like they have a traumatic things to be, and it hesitate to say something to the public or some other places.
I think we should always help the helpers. So, like, if it's about a physical condition, like if they cannot speak literally, they can only do sign language, then there's also a infrastructure project that provides sign language translation to the people who cannot speak or hear. Or if it is a mental like condition, then maybe we need to empower them to communicate in the modality that they are most likely to do. For example, many people, for them, like asynchronous typing is easier than a face-to-face conversation. Then we need to include both the real-time and the asynchronous. But there are many, many ways including brain-machine interface, if you want to get people who cannot even move to use their brainwave to communicate, or immersive shared reality. There are many technologies now, assistive technology, that want to bridge this kind of conditions.
We have a collaborator who prefers asynchronous communication, Vitalik Buterin. So yeah, we operate in many modalities.
Thank you. So this could be a last question. It is be possible to create an entirely trustless and fully open government?
Yeah. Of course, it is always possible to be even more open and to rely even less on a centralizing authority. But once you do that, you will discover even more opportunity. So I use Web3, small case, WEB3 with no space, as just a shorthand for decentralized. And so it can be more and more decentralized over time. You can be more Web3 and more Web3 over time. There is no final point where it is maximally decentralized. The idea of plurality means that you can always have one more center. You can have one more viewpoint. You can always have one more conflict and turn it into co-creation. But it is not saying that we should be like 23 million people, should be 23 million sovereign countries. It's not like that. It is about to look at the ways that we currently rely on central authority, and then to look at the natural groups, like people who learn together, people who study together, people who have similar interests, and so on, and have those groups also have some authority. It is not about making sure that each person is their own authority. It is about surfacing the existing group connections and making them also institutions, authorities, things that existing authorities respect. But it is not about taking existing authority and say, okay, you now a agency with 500 people. From tomorrow on, you have to be 500 corporations. That is not plurality.
Yeah, what I'd also say is, I don't like the word trustless. I like the word trust building, because what they did in Taiwan is they went from 9% to 60% approval. So is that trustless? Well, it was kind of, they were trustless at the beginning, and so then they created trust. So we should always want to create trust, not to destroy trust.
Yeah, so the trustless originally means you don't have to trust blindly something that's not deserving of your trust. That's what trustless means in the blockchain nomenclature. But I think it is quite confusing, because what we are doing with blockchain, with Web3, is to have a more earned version of trust, a more trustworthy version of trust, so that we don't have to blindly trust something that is not deserving our trust. But the new situation is not trustless. It is only relatively low trust for the old thing, right? But it is newer trust relationship between the new institutions. Maybe we close the projector.
I